Hello and welcome to October! It's spooky season, and what better way to celebrate than by dressing up in spooky costumes? Well, less spooky and more just different, really, and less so costumes and more art styles, and less of you dressing up, as 32 OCs posted one per day as part of a yearly drawing challenge. You know that old chestnut? So yes, once again I am engaging in my long-standing annual 12-month-old tradition of RandOCtober, the cumbersomely titled month-and-a-day-long challenge in which I draw mine and my friends' original characters in styles randomly generated from a big old list that I've curated over the past 11 months. These styles range from those of famous artists to well-known cartoonists, from games to films, from the doodly to the intricate, from masterpiece to meme. And while by the time this video comes out I'll have already shown off 16 of them, I thought I'd record the process of allotting and attempting the artistic autumnal tumult for all to ogle. Oh, and also each picture this year has a cat in it? No reason really, I just wanted to practice drawing cats. Hence the name. RandOCtober 2. Electric Mugaloo. On with the show! Now before we do any randomization however, we need to make our preview. Last year was Rufus split into 6 or 7 shards of styles. This year however, rather aptly, we're choosing October. The original idea was to just pose October as the Vitruvian Man and have each limb be from a different style, but I ended up just copying Da Vinci's style throughout, albeit with some stylized forms here and there. I think it largely worked, although the fact that they have no nose continues to make them slightly unsettling. Fun fact, I made this after generating the rest of the month, so that I knew not to use any style that would appear later. So bad luck for anyone hoping for Cuphead or gorillas or ancient Greek pottery or whatever that leg is. My parsnip, probably. There's also October's pseudo-pet stray shadow cat. Turns out Da Vinci really liked doodling a cat or two, so I had a bit of reference there. I mean, none of them were made of shadows, as far as I'm aware, but if you're annoyed by that compromise, boy howdy, this is not the video for you. Okay, we have Phame and I'm not doing 2 characters in the style of the person who drew them. Okay, we have Phame and Fortyoon in the style of Dexter's Lab / Powerpuff Girls. That fits perfectly. They are absolutely Powerpuff Girls villains. This works great. These are 2 characters from ChibiNetherlands for our Project Veev thing. They're just like evil clowns, basically. This fits too well! As stated, these characters fit far too well, not only in this style, but in this universe. They're deceptively influential, ear-whispering merchant clowns that could slot right into the PPG world between amoeba mobsters and flamboyant lobster man. The cat, I think, is also evil. It's been a while since I've watched the show, but needless to say, after old PH and F have their way, it'll be off to spread the nefarious word on their behalf. Spreading the muse, so to speak. Okay, we have Finn in the style of Metal Gear Solid. Finn is a scruffy little punky cat. I mean, I could see them being like a mascot or weird side character. I could see Hideo Kojima doing something like that. Are they gonna... I was expecting a human for this style. This is what happens when I put non-human characters in the list. I've got to deal with the consequences. Gosh, this style is hard for a digital artist to copy. What with the textural brushes and the inky watercolor textures and the minimalism with strokes and the Yoji Shinkawa being really, really good at stuff, it's not fair, you know? Now I can't say this was an entire success, this wouldn't pass as a legitimate piece of Shinkawa art, and I'm pretty confident in saying that the right-hand side of this is much better than the left, but I'm pretty pleased with that face on the right. If nothing else, that face is spot on, at least to my unpracticed eyes. Should have just cropped it to that, really. Hang on a sec. There we go. Much better. Righto, we have Sal, Todd and Axel in the style of Ed, and Eddy. That fits way too well. Far too well. I mean, it doesn't mean I have to work out how to draw amphibians in the style of a cartoon that only has human characters. I'll work it out. It's fine. It's a trio with a trio. What could possibly go wrong? Third day, 3 characters in a triple-barreled show, one from my childhood to boot. Given how this wobbly, caricaturish, often deliberately ugly show was my favourite growing up, it's a wonder my own art is so structural and meticulous. So it's nice to go back and remind myself how to be loose and extreme with things once in a while. In particular, we swapped out 3 scamming school kids with a gaggle of gangling goons. Scraped from the spaghettied walls of Project Veev, they haven't received much screen time, but I like their designs, so I'm hoping they'll find a place somewhere in my nonsense. The fact that this picture is now 50% of their existence is slightly perturbing, but hey, they can deal. That said, I can't remember there being a cat in the show, so I'm pretty pleased with how that turned out. Look at that face. bless. Righto, give it a spin. We have... Well, this is going to be interesting. This is my friend ChibiNetherlands, who is also doing a monthly style challenge this month. I'll put a link in the description. This is their sort of Companionsona robot stray character from the hit game Stray, 2022 Stray. In the style of Elden Ring. Not many robots in that game. It's going to be... I can make something work. I can make something work. So, a few issues presented themselves here. Issue 1. Elden Ring doesn't have a 2D art style, so I went with the in-house concept art style. I say in-house because the Elden Ring concept art books, yes, books plural, haven't actually come out yet. Issue 2, there are no robots in Elden Ring. Faced with the choice of just drawing a robot in Elden Ring clothes or actually trying to make an in-universe approximation of a robot, I opted for the latter, ending up with a kind of combination of millennia-esque prosthetics and a glintstone crown-style head with exchangeable faceplates. I don't think I did a terrible job. Issue 3, there are no cats in Elden Ring. Why did I put this on the list? Again, as a compromise, I tried to make a mix between the cat from Stray and Shalqua from Dark Souls 2, which... yes, it's not Elden Ring, but Elden Ring is basically Dark Souls 2 too, right? Kind of, sort of. Issue 4, the only way I could think to incorporate B12 was as one of those stone ball eye things, but floating, and they deserve better than that. Oh, and obviously issue 5, which is... I'm really bad at this. Righto, give it a little spin, and we have... No, I'm not going to do that. They deserve better. Okay, we've got Veev as a low poly. Ooh, this could work. This could work. So I tried low poly last year. It didn't turn out so good. Well, it turned out fine, but it certainly wasn't low poly. So yeah, I'm gonna try and do this as like a PS1 style graphics. Veev has got that big hair, and it works. This can work. We'll see. I reckon this could work. Right, I stuck to my guns this year. Actual low poly, straight out of the PS1. Well, not straight out, I had to fake a few things, crunching the colours in all of the textures, manually painting shadows onto vertices to simulate vertex lighting, not putting in point lights for lamps, but manually drawing lights onto specifically mapped wall textures, that sort of thing. But I think I sort of got there in the end. So where is Veev in all this? Are they in Karnaka, as the RPG they come from suggests? Well, it's looking a bit grimy for that. There's a bin there, so maybe. Generally, I tried to conjure up in my mind the image of PS1 textures, and grimy was the word that sprang to the fore. I like the hair though. Looks a bit like spaghetti, but I can deal with that. Also, that cat knows what you did. It knows. Okay, now we have Rob. Ooh, okay. A little Graham Annabelle doodle of Rob. This should be kind of nice. I put Grickle in because I liked the way he does like eyes and noses, and I got a robot, so... You can never predict these things, can you? Trust me to put a style in the randomizer explicitly for the way they draw eyes and noses, only to have a robot spat out at me. That's the second robot that's given me trouble, bloody things. Still, Rob's a fair sport and tries to blend in as best he can, which isn't very well, but gives me a chance to draw a big old bushy moustache. I've always liked Graham Annabelle's way of drawing faces, facial hair included. If you've never played the Puzzle Agent games, I do highly recommend them. It's a good time, if only for the characters. I'm also a big fan of the way he draws cats, so they're there trying to enjoy their milk in peace, and failing, because Rob's had too much WD-40 and feeling a tad exuberant. Okie dokie, time for a spin. We have Mal. We should have probably written Malachi. Mal in the style of Disco Elysium. I didn't even read the game. Oh my word. Okay, this is my character Malachi in the style of Disco Elysium. Okay. This either works too well or too badly. Okay, so this one was largely an excuse to play fast and loose with some painterliness. I aimed more for the NPC portraits than those of the main characters, blockier and more restrictive in choices of colour. Well, that was the idea anyway. Look, Mal's a colourful guy, so the idea was to make a simple palette based off CMYK. Cyan hair, magenta clothes, yellow background, black shadows, triangulating the colour wheel to end up with something suitably garish for Mal's taste. My natural inclination towards blending and softening colours did kick in a tad, but we got somewhere close, eventually, kind of. This is one I'd like to have another 2 or 3 cracks at, particularly given that the expression I did in an early colour test looked really good, and I couldn't for the life of me replicate it. Also, no cat this time, couldn't fit one in, but there are a few little badges on Mal's shirt depicting some famous cats, so if you fancy a little guess, Don't worry if not though, because they're a right mess. Deliberately, of course. Honest. I don't know what's going on. I'm none the wiser. Let's randomize it. Boom. Ah, we have Raine. Yes. Okay. Right. Fantastic. So Raine was somebody I did last year. It was my friend Kiro's character, who I tried to do in the style of Van Gogh. But apologies to all Dutch people. Obviously, that's quite a tricky style. So I put them in again as a kind of goodwill gesture of like, I will do them better this time. And boy, I'm gonna try and do them better in this style. Last year, Kiro's lightning fanatic RPG character Raine got rather short-shafted by being given the style of Vincent van Gogh, or more accurately, by being given me trying to do the style of Van Gogh. But it didn't go well, so I was bloody determined this year that they'll get something stronger. And boy did they. I'm not a huge fan of the JoJo style, but you can't tell me it isn't striking. Lips so big they can act as airbags, cheekbones so deep that they could house a small bird's nest, hands so detailed and extreme that they could give me an absolute headache trying to replicate them. Help! Seriously though, I am pretty pleased with this one, so my penance has been settled. The cat seems to reflect that satisfaction, which is weird given how close they are to lightning. That's not how my cat reacts to lightning, that's for sure. She sticks her head under the sofa to hide. Just her head though. Not the brightest button. Okay, now we have True in a Shinhanga. This is too elegant for True, I feel. True, the chaos wolf of our Wildermyth playthrough. I can make this nice, hopefully, if I can try and emulate the Shinhanga style. Oh, do you know what? There was that bit in our Wildermyth playthrough where it was like True and Cress were standing and looking over a horizon, and there's a nice sunset. Oh, I bet I could emulate that. Needless to say, I'm not actually going to make a woodblock print for this one. So last year, I tried my hand at a traditional Japanese woodblock style in the form of Tori's jaunt into ukiyo-e. This year, I thought I'd kick it up a notch, and a couple of centuries, into my personally favoured style of Shinhanga. This was very much after Japan and the West started sharing artistic ideas, and so the introduction of perspective, deep, rich colour, and realistically drawn humans became more commonplace. So of course I get an anthropomorphic dog. Luckily for me, while the uncontained chaos that is True doesn't oft befit the wonderful tranquility of the Shinhanga's most famous work, a brief moment in her story, staring out over a deserted clifftop with the mountain-straddled sunset, yielded appropriate reference. I cut out the bit where my character awkwardly tried to ask her out, though. While I don't think I particularly did the style justice here, this only being a quick, inexperienced mock-up, it was at least fun to give it a shot. Maybe I'll try with actual woodblocks at some point. Or maybe I'll keep saying that over and over and over again until I die and have it etched on my epitaph along with the list of all the other things that I said I would do eventually. Probably the latter. Okay, we have Buddy in the style of Wildermyth. Okay, Ratman. Definitely a Ratman. And or Ratboy. Sure, that can work. Absolutely. Wildermyth's a good game, you should play it. This one, kind of fun, not only because of Wildermyth's very particular style and gorgeous colour and texture palette, but also because Chibi, my friend from whom this character comes, is doing their own challenge this month, drawing this character in a different style each day. And the very first day of the month was in the style of Wildermyth. What a lovely coincidence and a fascinating insight into how differently we both approach the same idea. Mine ended up rather cartoonier than the source material or Chibi's version, and leaning towards darker scenes if only to give Buddy his lantern. Also, that's technically not a cat, it's a stone spirit, but it would be frankly irresponsible of me to put our good Ratman Buddy up against an actual cat. They deserve better than that. Also, scurrying onomatopoeia, because it's Wildermyth and Ratman. Righto, we have Hortense, as a medieval illumination. Interesting. It's a bit of a jump from last year, but I reckon, the cool sort of like the action-y sort of thing with a crossbow, maybe fighting a giant snail, or a cat, I guess. I've got to have a cat in all of these. I've got to draw a medieval cat. I didn't think about this. The hardest part about trying to draw in the style of a medieval monk who was just boredly doodling in a manuscript is to put yourself in the mind of somebody who A, hasn't heard of perspective, and B, hasn't seen a cat. I don't know if that last one's historically accurate, but judging by all the references I could find, I'm pretty certain they were just guessing. Fortunately for Hortense, she gets her trusty crossbow here, there of course being plenty of contemporary illustrations of crossbows. I mean, in the reference I used, it was being wielded by a giant rabbit, but you get the idea. Peter Rabbit's really chilled out over the centuries, didn't he? Anywho, there's not much to write home about here. It's a pretty simple style. I probably spent more time looking up when to use the long or short S's in my signature than anything else. No consistency, those monks, none at all. Terrible. Okay, we've got tree 3 in this. Ooh, okay, interesting. This is from my Googology video. I really like the design of tree 3. Doing the style of John Cullen. Okay, John Cullen is, if you don't know, a cartoonist who does some wonderfully surreal and slightly unsettling, but nonetheless very silly comics. And his style is just superb. And I now need to try and do tree 3. Tree 3 is going to be some sort of cosmic horror, probably. We'll work it out. He's going to be breaking out of the frame, I know that much. So, John Cullen is a man of many talents, capable of stunning serenity, abstract deconstruction, that face, but the things that immediately came to mind from his art were A, a strong use of colour, and B, a strong use of, oh my god, what is that? To this end, Tree 3's capacity to near infinitely split and extend their arms, and the propensity for John Cullen's comics to so frequently dismantle, dispose of, and dissociate the fourth wall came in rather handy. Multiple handies, I guess. Now, if you've not been paying attention, you may well be asking here, well, that's all very well, Crispy, but you promised to draw a cat in each picture. Tree 3 isn't a cat, and neither are their arms, even in that quantity. That's true, yes, but however, if you'll take a moment to just look outside of the picture, to look at yourself for a brief, fleeting instance, perhaps you can ask yourself, maybe it is I who is the cat. Maybe. Okie dokie, we have Perfect. Yes, absolutely. Last year, Priad was my favourite one I did. It was in the style of Aardman, and it was perfect. The fact that I get to do an animated Kiki Flipnote version of Priad is... yes. If held at gunpoint by a particularly unhinged but very specific art critic and compelled to attach a single adjective to the excellent animations of KK Flipnote, I'd probably have to choose bouncy. If instead I was held at knife point by a particularly unhinged but very specific GM and compelled to attach a single adjective to the ominous aura around the character of Priad, I'd probably have to say not bouncy, at which point I would be stabbed for breaking the terms of the challenge. This, you may think, presents a problem. You, it turns out, would be wrong. After last year's wonderfully silly foray into Aardman, having Priad as a little silly bouncy boy is absolutely perfect, and I will hear nothing against the idea. Quite how well I emulated specifically KK and not just the technical specifications of the now sadly defunct Flipnote studio in which they animate, I'm not sure. But the world can't be worse off with a little more bounce in it, can it? Priad may disagree, but I'm the artist, so no. Righto, now we have Fritz in the style of Final Fantasy IX. Okay, Fritz is a cocksure character in the Dishonored RPG that I'm doing. So I'm guessing kind of Kuja-esque, maybe? Big head, big hands, big ego. It sort of works. Actually, more like Zidane. Oh dear, that's a horrible thought. I always knew Fritz was big-headed, but this is ridiculous. So Fritz is the cocksure, void-wielding show-off of our Dishonored RPG. Well, he's one of them anyway. And it's nice to see him being brought down to size. Chibi size, specifically. To be fair, as a professional fighter, I reckon they do quite well in Lindblom, a tricky opponent in the Festival of the Hunt, and his requested prize would probably be something really annoying, like having his face painted on the side of the palace walls or something. But hey, it's good to have an opponent that you really want to beat. Also, the Gimme Cats here. They want the knife. Don't give them the knife, you won't get it back. Oh hey, buddy! Okay, so we have Rufus in the style of Norman Rockwell. Well, okay, I guess that works. Norman Rockwell, I literally added Norman Rockwell to the list yesterday. Rufus has got that kind of like big nose. That can work, I reckon. This is gonna take some time, I think. Right, okay. So, slightly lucky with this one, in the sense that Rufus's character developed from a fictionalized version of myself, so I at least had a human reference, albeit one with a rounder face and a smaller nose. On the other hand, one of the major challenges was just finding references of cats. Rockwell loved to paint dogs. Boy, did he paint a lot of dogs, but most of the occurrences of cats find them either being chased by dogs or just generally having an unpleasant time. Something tells me he was more of a dog person, I don't know. Nonetheless, I don't think this turned out too bad. I tried for the rather cartoonier proportions and squidgy faces of Rockwell, and while I certainly don't think I'll be able to fool any art historians with this one, I'm not entirely displeased with the product either. Well, with the cat at least. Well, that's quite enough of those 16 characters and or character groups. Come back at the end of the month and have a gander at the making of the remainder of the Random Rabble. Until then, thank you very much for watching, and thank you a great deal to my lovely patrons, as always. If you fancy commissioning me to make art in any of the styles you've seen, or indeed any other, I do love having a crack at these things, then you can find contact details and example prices on my website, links in the description. Although hey, why not wait till the end of the month, right? It might be a tad busy for the next 16 days or so. Otherwise, have a fantastic 15th, and I'll see you at the month's end. Look after yourselves, everybody. Goodbye. So last year I tried my hand at easier done than said.